Good morning to you. Hope you're having a good day so far. I hope you had a great weekend. And now we're ready to get started with another week. And yesterday at church, Pastor Perry was bringing a message about what it really means to be a Christian and how we can be more like Jesus. And he laid out 4 things that really stuck with me, and I wanted to share with you this week because it really impacted my life yesterday at church. And 4 things that if we make sure these 4 things are present in our lives, then we will be more like Christ. The first thing was compassion, and we're going to talk about that today, and I'll share the other ones as we go through the week. But compassion is something that we must have in order for people to see Jesus in us. He shared the story in Matthew 14 about the feeding of the 5,000. And the interesting thing that really stood out to me yesterday as he shared this passage and as he preached the sermon was that Jesus had just gotten some bad news. Bad news about John the Baptist. And as you well know, John the Baptist was the forerunner to Christ. He was the one that went about preaching Jesus before Jesus ever came onto the scene. That was John's calling. That was his duty. And he's also the cousin of Jesus. And whenever Jesus heard about John the Baptist and his death, Herod had John beheaded. Whenever Jesus heard about it, it no doubt was very saddening to Jesus. And the Bible says there in Matthew 14 that Jesus was trying to get away from the crowds. He got into a boat and he was trying to get into a remote location away from the crowds so that he could just grieve and deal with the loss of John. But instead of him getting away from the crowds, they followed him. The Bible says there in Matthew 14 that they went to where he was. It says when Jesus heard of it, he departed thence by ship into a desert place apart. And when the people had heard, they followed him on foot out of the cities. And instead of Jesus being able to go and just be alone with his Father and be ministered to, he ended up ministering to others. The Bible says in verse number 14, it says, "And Jesus went forth and saw a great multitude and was moved with compassion towards them, and he healed their sick." Now he's setting the stage here for an even greater miracle, and that is the feeding of the 5,000. But Jesus, needing to be ministered to, chose to have compassion and minister unto others. Folks, there are going to be times when you and we're just having a bad day. We just feel like being alone. We just don't feel like talking to anybody, being around anybody. But yet, it's in those times that we really need to heighten our awareness to the fact that God may be wanting to use us to reach out to somebody else who's having an even worse day than you are. Folks, none of us have had such a bad day as Jesus has had. When he hung on the cross was the worst day anybody could ever imagine. Folks, we need to have compassion. We can't withdraw into our selfish little shell and forget the fact that there are still people in need, even when we are hurting. That's the number one ingredient to being more like Jesus, is having compassion. And I hope that you'll remember that today as you go out into your world, go to your jobs, or go wherever you go every day. Remember to have compassion. There's hurting people all around, and they're looking to you for answers, because you may be the only Bible they ever read. You may be the only Jesus they ever see. And let's make sure as Christians that we represent our Christ today. Hope you have a great day. I'll talk to you very soon.